The park was quiet, almost unnaturally so. A golden retriever sat perfectly still next to a small pink backpack on a weathered wooden bench. The sun had only just begun to rise, painting the grass in streaks of gold, but something felt wrong. Where was the girl who had been here moments ago? The dog's eyes darted toward the path, its ears pricked, tail stiff. The backpack had been left behind, but she had vanished. Passers-by slowed, noticing the unusual sight, but none dared approach. The dog's low whine seemed to carry a message: she's not here. Something is wrong. And then, as a gentle breeze rustled the maple leaves, the first thread of a mystery began to unravel, pulling everyone into a day that would change everything. The morning in Willow Park had started peacefully, almost idyllic, with sunlight slanting gently through the tall maple trees. The grass glistened with dew, and the air carried a faint scent of earth and flowers. Joggers passed in measured rhythm, and occasional cyclists coasted along the paved paths. Yet all of this normalcy contrasted sharply with the tension near the old wooden bench at the far end of the park. There, a golden retriever sat rigidly beside a small pink backpack, its fur catching the sunlight in warm streaks. Its eyes were fixed on the path that led into the parking lot, scanning with a patience and alertness that felt unnatural for a dog, alertness born not of training but of instinct. The backpack looked ordinary enough, faded from use, with scuff marks on the corners and a patch of dirt on the bottom. Its zipper was slightly undone, revealing a glimpse of a notebook, a water bottle, and a folded jacket inside. But its owner, the young girl who had been carrying it moments before, was nowhere to be seen. The dog whined softly, a low, almost human sound that suggested worry rather than panic. Carla, a woman in her late 30s who ran the same route every morning, spotted the scene from a distance. She slowed her pace, tightening the laces on her sneakers as she approached. At first, she thought the dog was waiting for its owner to return from a quick errand. But the way the retriever's ears twitched, its tail stiff, and its body tensely coiled suggested something was wrong. Carla's heartbeat quickened. She had grown up with dogs, she knew that look. The dog was worried. Frightened even. "Hey, boy," Carla murmured gently, not wanting to startle him. She crouched a few feet away. The dog's head snapped toward her, amber eyes glinting with cautious intelligence. He did not move, did not growl, but the weight of his attention remained on the empty park path. Carla felt a chill run down her spine. "Where's your owner?" she whispered. No answer came, of course. Just the soft rustle of leaves and the distant hum of traffic beyond the park's border. Carla glanced at the backpack. Something about it seemed wrong. Usually, a child's belongings wouldn't be left alone unless they were lost or distracted, but this was deliberate. Someone had left it here, and the retriever had stayed, loyal and vigilant, as if refusing to leave a child behind in danger. She approached cautiously, kneeling beside the bench. The notebook inside the backpack caught her eye. A few pages were open, scribbled with childish handwriting and hastily drawn doodles, hearts, stick figures, suns. But on one page, she noticed a short note written in uneven letters: "Don't follow me." Carla's pulse quickened. She looked around. The park was still sparsely populated, the usual morning crowd yet to arrive. No sign of the girl. No parents in sight. Nothing. The dog's gaze remained fixed toward the park entrance, body stiff as if anticipating something, or someone. Minutes passed, and Carla debated calling the police. But her instincts told her that hesitation could cost precious time. She fished her phone from her pocket and dialed the emergency line, whispering the details, careful not to take her eyes off the dog or the empty path. The golden retriever shifted slightly, letting out another low whine. Then, suddenly, his ears perked sharply. He leapt off the bench, nose to the ground, sniffing the air. Carla followed his movements cautiously. He led her toward a narrow trail that veered away from the main park path, his pace urgent but controlled. Carla tried to keep up, heart pounding, her mind racing with questions. Who was the girl? Where had she gone? Why had she left her backpack behind? And why was this dog so determined to stay by it? The trail led to a small grove of trees where sunlight barely touched the ground. The dog stopped abruptly, nose quivering, ears alert. Carla slowed, scanning the area. At first, she saw nothing. Then, a glimmer of movement caught her eye, a scarf, partially hidden under some branches. A small, slender arm lay just beyond it. Her breath caught. Carla approached carefully. The girl was alive but unconscious, her face pale and dirt-smudged, small cuts on her knees. The dog was at her side, licking her hand gently, nudging her as if trying to rouse her. Carla quickly assessed the situation. The girl was breathing, and the injuries, while concerning, were not life-threatening. But the circumstances were alarming. She knelt, checking the child's pulse, and whispered reassuringly, "It's okay. You're safe now." The retriever sat back slightly, watching Carla with eyes full of understanding, as if he knew she was there to help but also distrusted anyone else getting too close. Carla carefully lifted the girl, supporting her limp form, while keeping one eye on the dog. It stayed close, its tail low but wagging subtly, clearly protective but not aggressive. As she carried the girl back toward the park's main path, Carla kept scanning the area. There was no one around. No explanation, no sign of struggle. Just a backpack, a frightened child, and a loyal dog who refused to abandon her. By the time Carla reached the entrance where a few early morning pedestrians had begun to appear, the dog walked calmly beside her, his head held high, ears alert, but trust in Carla growing. They had made it to safety, but questions lingered in Carla's mind like a fog she could not shake. Who had left the girl here? Was this an accident, an abduction attempt, or something far more sinister? And how had the dog known she was in danger before anyone else had noticed? The golden retriever sat once more by the bench as emergency responders arrived. He watched carefully, as if ensuring the girl was protected. Carla knelt beside him, scratching behind his ears. "You did a good job, boy," she said softly. And in that moment, the dog's eyes met hers with an intelligence and calm that was almost human. Whatever had happened, one thing was certain, the dog had saved her. And now, the story of the girl, her backpack, and the loyal companion who refused to leave her side was just beginning. The sun climbed higher, brushing the park in warm light, but shadows of the mystery lingered, questions that had no answers yet, and dangers that had not yet revealed themselves. The golden retriever did not move from its post as the morning progressed. Its eyes, dark and alert, scanned every passerby, every fluttering leaf, every shadow across the park. The backpack beside it remained untouched, except for the occasional brush of the wind that made the zipper shift slightly. Something about the scene drew the attention of the few early risers who passed by. Carla, a middle-aged jogger who ran this path every day, slowed as she approached. She was tall, with a lean build, her hair pulled back into a tight ponytail. Her curiosity was piqued by the unusual sight of a dog sitting so rigidly by an abandoned backpack. She had seen plenty of stray animals, plenty of lost items, but never had she seen a dog sit with such intent focus, as if guarding something irreplaceable. "Hey there, buddy," she said softly, lowering her voice. The dog's ears twitched, but it did not flinch or approach. Its eyes stayed fixed on the far end of the path, alert and watchful. Carla noticed the pink backpack. It looked small, meant for a child, and it was oddly out of place. There were no children around, no parents nearby. Just the dog, loyal and tense. Her curiosity got the better of her. She stepped closer, careful not to startle the animal. The golden retriever let out a low, cautious whine, its tail remaining stiff. Carla crouched slightly to examine the backpack. It was zipped halfway, revealing a small notebook with faint doodles and a pencil tucked between the pages. The dog's gaze followed every movement she made, almost as if it were silently warning her to leave it alone. Carla's heart skipped a beat. She called the park office on her phone. "Yes, hi," she said, voice steady but firm. "There's a dog sitting beside what looks like a child's backpack near the North Maple Grove. The dog seems alert. I think someone might have left a child behind." Within minutes, park security arrived, and soon after, the local police were on the scene. Officers approached cautiously, speaking softly to the golden retriever, who refused to move from its post. It was clear to anyone observing that the dog's focus was not on the humans, it was on the girl who should have been there. The officers examined the backpack carefully. Inside, there were typical items: a small lunchbox, a water bottle, and the notebook with scribbled pages. There were no signs of struggle or damage, but one thing was unsettling: the girl herself was nowhere to be found. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Detective Rajiv Singh arrived shortly after, a tall, methodical man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He crouched beside the dog, speaking softly, letting the animal see that he was not a threat. The golden retriever relaxed slightly but remained close to the backpack. Rajiv took out a notebook of his own and began documenting the scene. "We need to find her quickly," he said to the officers around him. "The dog is clearly attached to the girl. Its behavior suggests she may have been taken recently or wandered off somewhere nearby." A canine unit was called in, and canine officers began examining the area. The golden retriever allowed the other dogs to sniff around but did not stray from the bench. Rajiv studied the paths around the park, the walking trails, the parking lot, and the wooded area at the far edge. The girl could have gone in any direction, but time was critical. As the investigation unfolded, witnesses were questioned. An elderly man walking his dog had seen a girl of about 8 or 9 years old running toward the small forested area earlier that morning, her golden retriever bounding after her. He recalled her stopping at the bench for a moment, dropping her backpack, and then continuing toward the wooded path. After that, she was gone. Rajiv's team began a careful search of the park's wooded areas, scanning every tree, bush, and path. The golden retriever, meanwhile, remained by the backpack, its eyes occasionally flicking toward the trail where the girl had been seen. Passers-by murmured softly, some approaching to comfort the dog, some simply observing. But it stayed steadfast, a silent guardian, refusing to leave its post no matter how much time passed. Hours passed, and the park slowly filled with a tense, watchful crowd. Parents brought children, worried neighbors gathered, and volunteers joined the search parties. Drones hovered above, sending live footage to the control center where Rajiv coordinated the effort. Every possible area was combed thoroughly, but there was no sign of the girl. The detective knelt beside the dog, gently touching its head. The animal leaned into the touch for a moment, then jerked its gaze toward a narrow trail leading into a more secluded part of the woods. Rajiv's heart tightened. The dog was giving a clue, a direction to follow that it instinctively knew. He radioed the team. "Unit 4, follow the trail toward the east clearing. The dog indicates the girl may have headed that way." The search party moved quickly but carefully, guided by the golden retriever's silent instructions. Every rustle in the leaves, every snap of a twig put the group on edge. The dog ran ahead, always in sight, and paused occasionally to ensure they were following. Its behavior was calm but insistent, a mix of loyalty and quiet urgency that could not be ignored. In the midst of the search, Rajiv paused to examine a series of small footprints in the damp soil. They matched a child's size, leading deeper into the wooded area. He gestured for the volunteers to follow quietly, careful not to disturb the surroundings. The golden retriever barked softly, a single, urgent sound that echoed through the trees. And then, faintly, almost imperceptibly, a small, muffled whimper was heard. The golden retriever's ears perked up immediately, and it dashed toward the sound, pausing only to ensure everyone was following. The search party hurried after it, hearts pounding, adrenaline sharp in every vein. There, near the base of a large oak tree, partially hidden by fallen leaves and bushes, sat the girl. She was unharmed but clearly frightened, clutching a small stuffed animal to her chest. Her golden retriever pressed close, nuzzling her and licking her hands as if scolding her for wandering too far. Rajiv knelt beside her. "Hey, it's okay. You're safe now," he said softly. Relief washed over the entire group. The dog wagged its tail gently, finally allowing itself a moment of relaxation now that its human was safe. The girl's parents arrived moments later, rushing forward, tears streaming down their faces as they embraced her tightly. The golden retriever barked once, happily, then rested its head against her leg, vigilant but calm. Rajiv made a note to report the dog's actions to animal behavior experts. The loyalty and intelligence it had shown was extraordinary, even for trained animals. The morning that had begun with mystery and tension ended with relief and quiet admiration. The girl was safe, the backpack had served as a silent sentinel, and the golden retriever had proven that sometimes, instinct and loyalty could guide us to safety when everything else failed. The evening had begun to settle over Willow Park, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and pink. Shadows stretched longer between the trees, and a quiet hum of cicadas filled the air. The golden retriever, which had been sitting faithfully beside the pink backpack for hours, finally rose to its feet. Its ears twitched at every sound, the distant chatter of children leaving the playground, the occasional bark from another dog, the soft rustle of leaves as a breeze drifted through the maples. Yet still, it did not leave the backpack. Its gaze was fixed on the path that led deeper into the park, as though expecting someone to appear out of the growing darkness. A park maintenance worker, an older man with a worn cap and a rickety wheelbarrow, passed by and noticed the dog. He slowed his pace, squinting at the scene. "Hey, boy, is she around?" he asked softly, nodding toward the backpack. The dog did not respond except for a low, rumbling whine. The man's frown deepened. There was a weight to the dog's presence, a seriousness that suggested something was terribly wrong. Meanwhile, the city's local news had started receiving early reports. A young girl, about 10 years old, had been reported missing by her mother, who had arrived at the park earlier than usual and found her daughter nowhere in sight. The backpack left behind on the bench was the only clue. Authorities were alerted, and a small search party began forming, but the girl's absence remained a mystery. As dusk approached, the park became quieter. The few remaining joggers and walkers hurried along the paths, eager to get home before the streetlights flickered on. The golden retriever, however, did not move. It stood, nose twitching in the cool evening air, and occasionally let out a low bark toward the wooded area bordering the park. There was urgency in the bark, not aggression, an insistence, as if urging someone to follow. By now, a local reporter had arrived, notebook in hand, carefully observing the dog in the abandoned backpack. She scribbled notes furiously, capturing the unusual sight, the loyal dog refusing to leave, the way it occasionally circled the backpack, and how its posture shifted whenever someone walked past too close. It was clear to the reporter that the dog understood something the humans did not. Suddenly, from the far side of the park, the faint sound of a girl crying reached the ears of those nearby. The dog's ears perked instantly. Without hesitation, it bolted toward the sound, leaving the backpack momentarily behind but never losing focus. The reporter and a couple of park visitors followed cautiously, their footsteps crunching against fallen leaves. The cries grew louder, echoing through the trees. The golden retriever darted through a narrow dirt path that wound between tall maples, moving with a purposeful energy that only a dog driven by loyalty and instinct could display. When the humans caught up, they found the dog standing alert, guarding a small clearing where the girl crouched, hugging her knees, tears streaking her dirt-smudged face. She looked up at the dog, her eyes wide with relief and fear. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. The dog nuzzled her gently, tail wagging softly, but it remained vigilant, scanning the woods as if expecting danger to return. The park authorities arrived moments later. They approached cautiously, taking in the scene. The girl's mother rushed forward, tears streaming, gathering her daughter into her arms. She glanced down at the dog, eyes misting over with gratitude. "You saved her," she said quietly. The dog simply wagged its tail and rested its head gently on the girl's shoulder, refusing to leave her side. What no one realized at that moment was that the girl's disappearance had not been accidental. Small clues in the surrounding area, the disturbed leaves, footprints partially hidden by shadows, and a faint trail of scuffed bark, suggested someone had tried to lure her. The golden retriever's instincts had been the first line of protection, sensing danger before humans had even noticed it existed. Night fell over Willow Park, bringing a cool breeze that rustled the leaves in a low, steady rhythm. The search team continued to survey the surrounding areas, but the immediate crisis had passed thanks to the unwavering loyalty of the dog. Parents nearby held their children closer, and the sense of unease lingered in the otherwise peaceful park. The girl, now wrapped in a blanket provided by a park official, kept glancing at her dog, speaking to it softly, almost as if sharing a secret. The bond between them had deepened in a way that transcended words. The golden retriever, sensing the danger had passed, finally relaxed its stance slightly but remained at her side, a silent guardian in the cooling evening. And in the shadows of the park, hidden behind the trees, the first hints of a deeper mystery waited to be uncovered, a reminder that while the immediate danger had passed, the story was far from over. The night had begun to fall over Willow Park, wrapping the familiar paths and trees in a soft, uneasy darkness. Streetlights flickered on one by one, casting pools of light on the damp pavement. The golden retriever, still sitting beside the small pink backpack, now seemed almost statuesque in the half-light, its silhouette sharp and tense. The park, once filled with the soft hum of cicadas and distant laughter, was now quiet except for the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant bark of a dog from the neighborhood beyond the park's edge. Detective Amir Khan arrived quietly in his black sedan, parking near the main entrance. He had been called by the local authorities after several witnesses reported a young girl missing in the park. As he stepped out, his boots crunching lightly on the gravel, he noticed the dog immediately. Its posture was alert, but calm, its eyes fixed unwaveringly on something he could not yet see. The detective knelt slowly, careful not to startle the animal. "Hey, buddy," he said softly, reaching out, but the dog didn't move. Its gaze remained fixed on the path that led toward the deeper woods at the park's edge. There was an intelligence there, a silent insistence, almost as if it wanted the detective to follow. Amir took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The missing girl, only 10 years old, had vanished without a trace, leaving only a pink backpack as evidence of her presence. He examined the backpack carefully. It was small but well-worn, the kind a child might carry every day. The zipper was slightly open, revealing a few school books, a notebook filled with scribbles, and a pencil case. Nothing seemed out of place at first glance. Yet, the way the backpack sat on the bench, paired with the dog's unusual behavior, suggested otherwise. This wasn't just a forgotten bag. Something had happened here, and the dog had seen it. As Amir stood, a young park ranger appeared from the nearby maintenance shed. "Detective," she said, her voice tight with concern. "The girl's parents are on their way. We've checked the playgrounds, the picnic areas, even the small pond near the west end. Nothing. She's gone." Amir nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving the dog. "Did anyone see anything unusual?" he asked. "Just that she was sitting here," the ranger replied, pointing to the bench, reading, like always. "And then, gone. No one saw her leave. The dog stayed." The detective knelt again, reaching out to touch the golden retriever's head. Its fur was warm, but its eyes were sharp and calculating. He whispered softly, "Where did she go?" The dog let out a low, urgent whine and then turned toward the narrow path that led to the thick grove of trees at the park's edge. Its tail stiffened slightly, as if signaling the path. Amir rose immediately. Good boy, he said, retrieving his flashlight from the car. The path was narrow, overgrown in places with bushes and low-hanging branches. The detective followed cautiously, the dog now walking ahead, sniffing the ground, alert to every sound. As they moved deeper into the grove, the air grew cooler, and the distant city noises faded until only the rustle of leaves and the dog's soft panting remained. Then, a faint sound reached Amir's ears, a low, muffled whimper. He froze. The dog stiffened as well, ears erect, eyes fixed on a thick clump of bushes. Carefully, Amir moved forward, brushing aside the branches. There, partially hidden, he saw the girl's small backpack resting against a tree trunk, just as before. But the girl herself was nowhere to be seen. A chill ran down his spine. The whimpering sound grew slightly louder, as if coming from somewhere nearby, just out of sight. The dog barked softly, then padded closer to the tree, sniffing the ground. Amir knelt and examined the footprints around the base of the tree, small, scuffed, and leading toward a narrow trail that twisted into the darker part of the park. It was clear someone had moved through here recently. With the dog leading the way, Amir followed the trail, flashlight sweeping from side to side. Shadows stretched in every direction, and the tension in the air was almost tangible. Each snap of a twig, each rustle of leaves made him jump slightly, heart pounding. But the dog never faltered. Its loyalty and determination seemed unshakable. After several tense minutes, they reached a small clearing, almost hidden by dense foliage. The girl's shoes were lying on the grass, and nearby, a few personal items, a scarf, a water bottle, were scattered as if dropped in a hurry. Amir's pulse quickened. The signs were subtle, but they told a story. The girl had been here recently. Someone had taken her, and the dog had been left behind to wait, hoping she would return. He took a deep breath, scanning the area. "She's close," he whispered to the dog, who wagged its tail faintly but remained alert. The detective knew that every second counted. Whoever had taken the girl might still be nearby. He radioed for backup, careful to keep the dog calm. As the sun dipped lower, the shadows deepened, turning the grove into a labyrinth of uncertainty. Amir felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him more than ever. But the golden retriever, unwavering and vigilant, seemed to draw strength from its bond with the missing girl. If she could hear the dog, she would know she wasn't alone. And that thought gave the detective a renewed sense of purpose. The night settled fully over the park, but the search had only just begun. Somewhere in the darkness, the girl was waiting. And the dog would not leave her side, not for a single moment. The investigation had stretched deep into the night, and Willow Park felt like an entirely different world under the cold glow of the streetlights. Detective Amir Khan crouched near the pink backpack, examining it with a gloved hand, while the golden retriever remained vigilant, sitting just inches away as if protecting the very soul of the missing girl. The backpack was zipped shut now, but Amir could see the faint outline of notebooks and pencils through its worn fabric. His flashlight swept across the surrounding area, catching glimpses of footprints in the soft earth, some small, some larger, none leading clearly away from the bench. Amir glanced up at the trees, listening to the quiet whisper of the wind through the branches. The park's normal serenity had vanished, every shadow seemed suspicious, every rustle a potential clue. The dog's ears twitched as it sniffed the ground, then the air, then the approaching footsteps of uniformed officers bringing lanterns and portable lamps. One of them, Officer Reena Desai, a young but meticulous officer, knelt down beside Amir, her face illuminated by the beam of her flashlight. "Detective," she said, "nothing else seems to be here. The girl's trail, it just stops." Her voice trembled slightly, betraying both her unease and her fatigue. Amir rubbed his temple, the stress of the case pressing down on him. He looked at the golden retriever again, noticing the intensity in its gaze, the almost human-like comprehension in its eyes. The dog's loyalty and anxiety were palpable, as if it understood that the girl's safety depended entirely on him and the people around. "Let's widen the search perimeter," Amir said quietly, standing. "If she wandered off or was taken, someone must have seen something." The officers nodded, and soon the park was filled with methodical footsteps and soft radios crackling as teams moved through the shadows, checking paths, benches, and hidden corners of the park. The dog did not move from the backpack. Its body remained tense, eyes darting constantly, occasionally letting out a soft whine that seemed almost pleading. Hours passed. The sun began its slow ascent, casting pale light over the park. Yet the girl was still nowhere to be found. Detective Amir took a step back and looked at the scene from a distance, the golden retriever seated unwaveringly beside the backpack, morning light hitting its golden fur just right to make it look almost ethereal. It was then that he noticed something, a faint glimmer of fabric caught in the roots of a nearby tree, partially buried in leaves. He approached carefully, brushing the leaves aside. There, barely visible, was a small piece of the girl's scarf, delicate and patterned. Amir's heart quickened. This was the first tangible clue they had found all night. The dog immediately jumped to its feet, sniffing and circling the area, its tail stiff, and its gaze focused as if it had recognized the exact trail. "Good boy," Amir murmured, scratching behind the dog's ears. The dog whined softly but remained alert, clearly unwilling to leave the vicinity. Amir signaled to Officer Desai, and together they began tracing the subtle signs that the dog seemed to notice instinctively, the disturbed grass, the faint impressions of small feet, the occasional scrap of clothing or paper that could have belonged to the girl. Hours turned into a tense morning. The park, once filled with calm morning walkers, was now cordoned off, the surrounding streets alive with police vehicles and reporters stationed at a distance. Amir knew they were racing against time. Every minute without locating the girl increased the danger she was in. And all the while, the golden retriever refused to leave the backpack, a silent sentinel in a world that had suddenly become uncertain and dangerous. By mid-morning, a breakthrough came. A local street vendor, a man in his 50s with a quiet demeanor, approached the officers. "I think I saw something last night," he said, voice low and hesitant. Around 11 p.m., a girl matching that description, she was talking to a man near the alley behind the coffee shop at the corner. She looked scared. Amir and Desai exchanged glances. This was new, someone had seen her outside the park. The detail was precious but troubling. They immediately redirected their search, with the dog leading the way. Its nose twitched constantly, following scents invisible to the human eye. Every time they slowed, the dog would circle and bark softly, impatient, urging them forward. It was clear it wanted them to follow, and Amir trusted the dog's instincts implicitly. The trail took them past familiar streets, then to quieter, less populated alleys. Small signs, the scuff marks on walls, a discarded hair ribbon, a faint scent lingering in the morning air, showed they were on the right path. The dog never faltered, its energy and focus unwavering, a testament to the bond it shared with the missing girl. Amir felt a mixture of awe and hope, realizing that this animal's loyalty might be the key to finding her. Hours later, just as the sun reached its peak, the dog stopped abruptly, nose to the ground, growling softly. Amir crouched beside it, scanning the small courtyard ahead. There, partially hidden behind a stack of crates near an abandoned warehouse, was a small figure huddled on the ground. The girl. Shivering, her eyes wide with fear, but alive. The golden retriever leapt forward joyfully, barking, but carefully nudging her to comfort her rather than scare her. Amir and Officer Desai approached slowly, keeping their distance to avoid startling her. "It's okay," Amir said gently. "You're safe now." The girl looked up, relief flooding her face as she recognized the dog, who pressed its head against her shoulder. Tears streamed down her face, and the tension of the night melted into an overwhelming sense of safety. The golden retriever had guided them, protected her, and never abandoned her, proving that loyalty and courage could transcend human limitations. As the girl was finally brought to safety, Amir allowed himself a quiet moment of satisfaction. The case was far from over. Questions remained about who had taken her and why, but the immediate danger was over. The dog, still pressed close to her side, seemed to understand that its mission had been accomplished, yet remained watchful, as if ready to defend her again if needed. For Detective Amir, this night had been a reminder that courage came in many forms, sometimes in the loyal eyes of a golden retriever who refused to leave the side of someone it loved. By early morning, the park had become a scene of controlled chaos. Police tape crisscrossed the entrance, marking off areas that detectives were methodically examining. Forensics teams crouched over patches of grass, photographing footprints, collecting samples of soil, and taking swabs from the damp wooden bench. The golden retriever, loyal as ever, remained a constant presence beside the pink backpack. Its deep brown eyes flickered nervously between the investigators and the park entrance, as though waiting for the girl to appear from the shadows. Detective Amir Khan paced slowly around the area, his mind racing. The girl's disappearance was perplexing, not a struggle. No witness had come forward, no suspicious vehicles were reported leaving the vicinity. Yet something about the scene did not sit right with him. He crouched next to the backpack again, gently opening it this time to examine its contents in detail. Inside were the girl's notebook, a small water bottle, a folded scarf, and a lunchbox untouched. Each item suggested that she had arrived expecting only a normal morning, nothing unusual. Amir's attention turned to the notebook. Pages filled with sketches and writing were scattered, some doodles of animals, some notes that looked like reminders for school projects. But in the back pages, he found something that made him pause. A series of hurried scribbles, nearly illegible, spoke of fear, lines like, "Don't let them see me, hide," and "I wish I could tell someone." The writing was frantic, and Amir's gut tightened. The girl had sensed danger, but what, and from whom? Meanwhile, the retriever shifted slightly, letting out a low whine, drawing Amir's attention. The dog's nose twitched, sniffing the air, its posture rigid. It was clear it wanted someone to follow. Amir reached down cautiously, placing a hand near the dog's shoulder. The retriever did not flinch. Instead, it seemed to invite him to move forward, pulling subtly toward the path that led deeper into the park. Amir followed, careful not to rush the dog or miss the subtle signs in the environment. The trail of footprints was faint, mostly obscured by the damp earth and the scattered leaves. But with the dog leading, Amir noticed small indications, a scuffed patch of grass, broken twigs, and a piece of fabric caught on a low branch. It was a trail, subtle yet present, that someone had not intended to leave. Hours passed as the morning light grew stronger. Park employees began to arrive, whispering among themselves, observing the scene from a distance. Amir spoke with them, trying to piece together any information about the girl's usual routines, her friends, and her family. Every story was the same: she was careful, bright, and normally cautious. There had been no sign of distress before today. The golden retriever, however, did not wait for these explanations. It continued to move purposefully, guiding Amir along the barely visible path that curved through dense shrubs and low-hanging branches. At one point, the dog stopped suddenly, ears perked, and barked softly. Amir approached and noticed the ground had subtle depressions, almost hidden under the leaves. Small markings that suggested someone, or something, had been dragged or had struggled briefly. Heart pounding, Amir called in his team. Forensics officers arrived, photographing the area, marking evidence, and collecting soil samples. Each step confirmed what Amir feared: the girl had not gone willingly. There had been a brief struggle, but nothing violent enough to suggest a prolonged fight, just enough to indicate she had been moved quickly. The morning shadows were longer now, stretching across the park. Amir's team followed the trail that the retriever continued to indicate. Hours of careful movement brought them to the edge of a forgotten grove, hidden from the main paths. The air here was cooler, filled with the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves. Amir's flashlight swept across the area, catching glimpses of small, discarded items, ribbons, a hair tie, and what looked like a torn piece of a jacket. Each item confirmed that they were on the right path. The retriever, sensing that the team had caught up, let out a quiet bark and pressed forward again. Amir noticed how the dog's loyalty and intuition were extraordinary, almost as if it could sense danger before anyone else. There was no hesitation, no confusion, just a focused determination that spurred the detectives onward. By late morning, the search extended deeper into the grove. Amir paused to consult with his team, making careful notes about every piece of evidence. The girl was somewhere in this area, but the dense foliage and hidden pockets of the grove made the search difficult. Yet with each step, guided by the dog, small clues emerged, a footprint here, a scrape on a tree there, painting a grim picture of someone trying to escape or hide. As the sun climbed higher, the golden retriever finally stopped, sitting rigidly beside a dense thicket. Its eyes scanned the area, nostrils flaring. Amir approached slowly and noticed a faint sound, a muffled, almost inaudible whimper. The team froze, listening. It was real. The girl was close. Amir signaled his team to prepare carefully, knowing that whoever had taken her might still be nearby. The dog's unwavering gaze, its body tense and ready, was the first signal that they were on the brink of discovering the truth. Amir took a deep breath and stepped forward, flashlight and radio in hand, knowing that the next moments could decide everything. The grove remained quiet, holding its secrets in the morning light, but the trail, the clues, and the loyal golden retriever had brought them closer than ever. The girl's fate, uncertain and fragile, was no longer invisible. And somewhere ahead, in the shadowed foliage, the mystery of her disappearance waited to be uncovered. The sun was high in the sky now, spilling a harsh, unrelenting light over Willow Park. The park had transformed into a hub of activity, police vans lining the streets, reporters and onlookers gathering at the periphery, and volunteers canvassing the surrounding neighborhoods. Yet in the center of it all, by the familiar wooden bench, the golden retriever remained steadfast beside the small pink backpack, its coat gleaming in the sunlight but its posture tense and unrelenting. Every so often, it would lift its head, ears pricked, as if hearing a sound too faint for human perception. Detective Amir Khan knelt beside the backpack once again, carefully examining its contents. Inside, the notebook lay open to a page filled with the girl's hurried scribbles. There were drawings, lists, and fragments of sentences that seemed to reveal her thoughts over the past few days. Some lines hinted at small, everyday worries, a forgotten homework assignment, a miscommunication with a friend, but others suggested a sense of unease, a quiet fear that Amir hadn't noticed before. He looked up, scanning the nearby trees and playground equipment for anything unusual. Volunteers were calling out, checking paths and corners, while forensic teams continued their meticulous work. The dog didn't move, though its body twitched occasionally, ears swiveling at every sound. It was almost as if the animal could sense the girl's presence nearby, somewhere beyond human perception. A soft whine caught Amir's attention. He turned and saw the dog shift slightly, sniffing the air. Its eyes seemed to glimmer with urgency. Without thinking, Amir followed the dog's gaze toward a narrow trail leading out of the park, bordered by overgrown bushes. The trail wasn't on any official map, a forgotten shortcut that locals rarely used. He signaled to a couple of officers to follow, keeping his own hand on his radio. The dog began to move cautiously, leading the way, but never leaving the backpack unattended. The trail twisted and narrowed, the branches of the bushes scraping lightly against Amir's jacket as he walked. The golden retriever paused occasionally, looking back as if ensuring that Amir and the officers were still following. There was a tension in the air that made even the usual birdsong seem distant and muted. Somewhere deeper into the trail, a faint sound, a rustle, perhaps even a whisper, caught Amir's attention. He froze, holding up a hand to stop the others. The dog's hackles rose slightly, its low growl vibrating through the quiet morning. Amir's heart raced, knowing instinctively that they were close to something important. He gestured for the officers to remain cautious as he stepped forward, guided partially by the dog's sharp instincts and partially by a gut feeling that had served him well over years on the force. The further they moved, the more the trail seemed to disappear under layers of fallen leaves and branches. Every step required careful navigation, and the tension in the air thickened with each movement. Then, just as Amir thought the trail might lead nowhere, the golden retriever stopped abruptly. Its body stiffened, ears pricked forward, and it let out a soft, urgent bark. Amir's flashlight caught a glimpse of a faint figure, partially hidden behind a cluster of trees and bushes. He froze, trying to make sense of the silhouette. The figure moved slightly, small and hesitant, almost childlike. Amir called out gently, "It's okay, we're here to help." The figure did not respond immediately, and the dog's growl deepened, though it remained close to the backpack, refusing to leave. Amir took another cautious step forward, and the figure slowly stepped into the open. It was a young girl, her hair tangled and clothes smudged with dirt, but otherwise unharmed. Relief washed over Amir in a wave he hadn't realized he'd been holding back. The golden retriever barked happily, tail wagging for the first time in hours, as it nudged the girl gently. She knelt and hugged the dog tightly, tears streaming down her face. The officers moved in, ensuring the girl was safe, while Amir stood back for a moment, allowing the scene to settle. The backpack, still on the ground, remained untouched, a silent witness to the morning's tension and uncertainty. Even amidst the relief, Amir's mind was racing. Who had caused her to disappear? Why had she taken the trail in the first place? The questions would come later. For now, the immediate concern was her safety, and the golden retriever had done its job with unwavering loyalty, guiding them to her without fail. As the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows over the park, Amir realized the dog's presence had been more than protective, it had been essential. Without the animal's persistence, they might have spent hours searching, or worse, never found her at all. The girl clung to the dog, whispering something Amir couldn't hear, her tears soaking into the golden fur. The scene was quiet, intimate, yet charged with the emotions of fear, relief, and gratitude. In that moment, everything else, the chaos of the park, the approaching reporters, the ongoing investigation, faded into the background. What remained was the bond between a girl and her loyal companion, a silent hero who had never wavered. And while the questions about what had happened would demand answers, for now, it was enough to know that she was safe, guided home by the unwavering loyalty of a golden retriever who refused to leave her side. By late afternoon, Willow Park had taken on an almost surreal quiet. Most of the crowd that had gathered earlier had dispersed, leaving behind only a handful of volunteers and a few lingering onlookers, their faces etched with concern and curiosity. The golden retriever, ever faithful, remained seated next to the pink backpack on the old wooden bench. Its eyes, dark and sharp, scanned the paths, the trees, and the shadows beneath the park benches, as if searching for some clue invisible to the human eye. The dog's patience was remarkable, its loyalty unwavering, but there was a tension in its body, a barely contained anxiety that seemed to ripple outward like an electric current in the still air. Detective Amir Khan had returned with a few new pieces of information, gathered from interviews with locals who had been in the park at various times that morning. Each account painted a fragment of a picture. Some glimpsed a girl running ahead of the dog, her ponytail bouncing, while others claimed to see her speaking briefly to a stranger near the far edge of the park. None of these observations aligned perfectly, and yet together they hinted at a fleeting, disjointed trail that Amir could not ignore. He crouched beside the bench again, his gloved hand resting lightly on the backpack. The dog's head lifted slightly, watching him, and for a brief moment, Amir felt a connection that went beyond the typical human-pet bond. It was as if the dog was silently imploring him to find her, to understand that the urgency was real. Carefully, Amir unzipped the backpack a little further, revealing a small notebook filled with childish handwriting. Scrawled across the pages were sketches, random words, and half-formed sentences that reflected the mind of a child at play but also hinted at fears she could not articulate. Outside the park, a search party had begun coordinating with neighbors, posting flyers, and checking the alleys and side streets. The tension in the air was palpable. The city seemed to contract around the small disappearance, holding its breath. Every now and then, the dog would rise, sniff the air, and then sit back down, never leaving the backpack, never relinquishing its vigil. Volunteers whispered among themselves, commenting on the dog's extraordinary devotion. "She must be important to him," one remarked. "Or maybe he knows something we don't." Amir called over one of his colleagues, a young officer named Lena, who had been helping track leads. "Check the perimeter along the creek," he instructed. "See if there's anything the dog might have caught scent of last night." Lena nodded, grabbing a flashlight and walking briskly toward the water. The golden retriever's ears twitched as she moved, and for a moment, Amir felt that the animal was guiding them, not just by instinct but by an almost human understanding of danger. Hours passed. Shadows lengthened. Amir took a step back and observed the dog as it lay down beside the backpack, head resting gently on its paws, eyes still scanning. There was an almost heartbreaking patience in that posture, a readiness to spring into action combined with a silent plea for someone to solve the mystery. Every passing car, every jogger, every rustle of leaves seemed to momentarily raise the dog's alertness, and then it would settle again, steadfast, unwavering. As night approached, Amir realized that the situation required more than patience, it required understanding the psychology of the child who had disappeared. He examined the notebook more closely, noting recurring sketches of the park, the bench, the trees, and a faint trail leading toward the wooded area at the far edge. Perhaps she had wandered there, perhaps she had been approached. Amir made a mental note to investigate that trail at first light, knowing that the hours of darkness could be critical. The dog, sensing the change in light and the human movement around it, rose once more, walking a short distance along the edge of the bench and back. Its movements were deliberate, purposeful. It was not just a pet, it was a guardian, a silent sentinel holding vigil over a mystery that had gripped an entire community. And then, from the corner of Amir's eye, he noticed something, a faint trail of footprints in the soft earth leading away from the park toward the wooded area. The dog stiffened, ears upright, tail slightly raised. Amir signaled to Lena, who was nearby, and they began following the footprints cautiously, the dog leading the way at a measured pace, its nose low, sniffing every inch of the path. The suspense was suffocating, the tension in the air almost tangible. Every step could lead to a breakthrough, or to another dead end. As they reached the edge of the woods, Amir could feel the night pressing in. The dog's gaze flicked forward, then back at him, as if to say, "She is close. Don't fail her." Amir swallowed hard, adrenaline coursing through him. The quiet park, once filled with morning birdsong and jogging footsteps, had transformed into a stage for a tense, real-life drama, a battle of patience, instinct, and hope. The golden retriever continued its vigil even as Amir and Lena prepared to enter the woods, its loyalty a steadfast anchor amid uncertainty. Somewhere within these trees, hidden from view, lay the key to the morning's mystery. And the dog, its faithful companion, knew it. As dusk began to settle over Willow Park, the air took on a cooler, heavier tone. The sunlight faded into soft amber, casting long shadows across the grass and highlighting the silhouettes of trees that had grown familiar over countless visits to the park. The golden retriever remained unwavering by the pink backpack, sitting tall and alert as if refusing to acknowledge that the girl it had faithfully guarded was nowhere to be seen. Its nose twitched constantly, picking up scents of passing humans, dogs, and the faint traces of the girl's presence from earlier in the day. Detective Amir Khan had returned to the bench after a brief meeting with his team. The tension in his shoulders mirrored the unease gripping the entire investigation. He crouched near the dog, careful not to startle it, and spoke softly. "We'll find her," he murmured, though even he wasn't certain if it was a promise or a hope. Nearby, a few volunteers were spreading out along the park's trails, calling her name, listening for any hint of a reply. The golden retriever's low growl caught through the quiet, soft, warning, protective. Amir looked up to see the dog staring intently toward the northern edge of the park, where the dense thicket of bushes created a natural barrier from the main walking paths. Something about the dog's posture was different this time, more rigid, more insistent, as though it had sensed the girl's presence before anyone else could. Amir gestured for a volunteer to stay with the dog while he cautiously approached the northern edge, flashlight in hand. The underbrush was thick, branches and twigs forming a tangled barrier, but the dog did not budge. It sat patiently, keeping its gaze fixed on the shadows where Amir's flashlight barely penetrated. A rustle came from deeper within the thicket, subtle but unmistakable. The dog's ears perked even higher, and it emitted a single, low bark, urgent but restrained. Amir froze. The sound was almost human, a cry, muffled and trembling. Heart pounding, Amir signaled for backup over his radio. Within minutes, a small team arrived, carefully making their way through the dense foliage. The golden retriever remained calm, yet attentive, its presence a steadying influence on everyone. Then, faintly, Amir heard it again, a soft, frightened voice calling out. "Hello," he whispered. "It's okay, we're here. You're safe." The dog's tail began a slow wag, its body relaxing slightly, as if understanding that help had arrived. Following the voice, Amir and the team pushed through the last few branches to find a small clearing. There, huddled and trembling, was the girl. Her clothes were dirty from crawling through the underbrush, her hands scratched and bleeding slightly, but she was alive. Her eyes widened when she saw the dog sitting nearby, and a weak smile spread across her face. The golden retriever leapt forward, nudging her gently, its warmth a comforting presence. She clutched its fur, tears streaming down her cheeks, and whispered, "I was so scared. I didn't know where to go." The dog rested its head on her lap, a silent guardian that had refused to leave her side. Amir and his team quickly checked her for injuries, and volunteers brought blankets and water. The girl's parents arrived moments later, their faces a mixture of panic and relief. She ran into their arms, holding tightly, while the golden retriever stayed close, vigilant yet content that the crisis had passed. Later, as paramedics and officers finalized the scene, the girl explained in soft, broken sentences how she had wandered off the main path, curious about something in the bushes, and had become trapped, unable to find her way back. The dog had followed her at a distance, but as soon as it realized she was missing, it had returned to the bench, guarding the backpack and waiting until help arrived. Its loyalty and intuition had made all the difference. Detective Amir Khan watched the reunion quietly, a small smile on his lips. The sun had nearly set, casting the park in hues of orange and violet. The chaos of the day had settled into calm, and though the investigation was far from over, there was a sense of closure in the air. The golden retriever sat back down beside the pink backpack, now slightly scuffed and dirty from the day's events, and rested its head, satisfied that its human was safe. There was no fanfare, no dramatic proclamations, just the quiet understanding that sometimes, the simplest acts of loyalty and courage were the most powerful. The girl hugged the dog one last time before walking back toward her parents, the dog's watchful eyes following every step. Willow Park would remember this day for years, not just for the scare, but for the unwavering bond between a child and her dog, a bond that had turned fear into hope and despair into relief. Night had fully descended over Willow Park, shrouding the familiar paths and trees in a dense, almost suffocating darkness. The only illumination came from the soft glow of distant streetlights, their amber light casting fragmented patterns across the damp grass. The golden retriever remained steadfast beside the small pink backpack, its breathing steady but tense, ears pricked at every distant sound, a car passing, the wind through the branches, the faint rustle of small animals in the underbrush. Hours had passed since the girl had vanished, and yet the dog did not move, as if knowing that leaving her side would mean losing her forever. Detective Amir Khan sat on the nearby curb, exhausted. His eyes, rimmed with dark circles from relentless hours of investigation, followed the dog's every movement. He had already reviewed security footage from surrounding streets, interviewed park employees, and canvassed nearby residents. But each lead had dissolved into frustrating dead ends. The girl's disappearance had a quiet, insidious weight to it, one that made Amir feel as if the park itself were holding its breath, silently mocking the frantic human attempts to uncover the truth. The backpack beside the dog rustled faintly as the animal nudged it with its snout. Amir leaned closer, the faint hope of discovery sparking within him. He opened the zipper gently, careful not to disturb the precious contents. Inside, he found the girl's notebooks, her small water bottle, and a folded scarf. Nothing seemed unusual at first glance, but the golden retriever pawed at the edge of a notebook, whimpering softly. Amir picked it up and flipped through the pages, his eyes catching on a small, hastily written note, a brief phrase that made his stomach tighten. "I'm scared. I need to hide." The handwriting was unmistakably hers. Amir felt a shiver run down his spine. The girl had left the backpack as a decoy, a signal, or perhaps a safe marker for someone she trusted. And the dog had known. It had remained at the scene, alert and patient, guarding her presence in a way only animals could comprehend. Amir's mind raced. Who would take a child into the park at night without leaving a trace, and why? The faint sound of crunching leaves made both Amir and the golden retriever tense. A shadow moved near the tree-line. The dog's ears pricked sharply, tail stiff, and it let out a low, protective growl. Amir's hand instinctively went to his flashlight and his service weapon, heart pounding. Slowly, a figure emerged, a young woman, holding the girl's hand. The child's eyes were wide but not frantic. There was a strange calmness in her expression, as if she had been waiting for this moment all along. Amir rushed forward. "Are you okay?" "Who did this?" he asked, his voice urgent but steady. The girl's eyes flicked toward the dog, who wagged its tail tentatively but remained alert. The dog's presence seemed to give her courage. I had to hide," the girl whispered, her voice barely audible. "He was watching, but I didn't want to get hurt. He's gone now. I think." Amir nodded, signaling for backup. As uniformed officers arrived, the girl was guided gently toward safety. She hugged her golden retriever tightly, burying her face in its fur. The dog licked her cheek, eyes glistening as if it understood the full weight of the night's terror. Amir studied the dog for a long moment. Loyal, patient, and courageous, the animal had stayed, never leaving the backpack, never abandoning hope, even when all signs suggested the girl was gone. In that quiet moment, surrounded by flashing police lights and murmurs of relief from nearby officers, Amir realized the truth of the day. Sometimes, the bond between human and animal could hold stronger than fear, and could guide the lost back to safety in ways that logic and procedure could not. Later, as the girl was reunited with her parents, the golden retriever remained at her side, protective yet calm. The backpack, now empty, sat nearby, a silent witness to a morning that had turned into a night of suspense, fear, and ultimately, relief. The park, once again, became quiet, but the story lingered in every shadow, every whisper of wind through the trees. For Detective Amir Khan, the case would remain a reminder of patience, observation, and the inexplicable intuition of an animal who had known more than any human could. For the girl, it was a night of terror turned into relief, guided by the unwavering loyalty of a golden retriever who refused to leave her side. And for the dog, it was simply another day of devotion, silent heroism, and the quiet satisfaction of having done exactly what it had been born to do: protect.